Well, hello, my friend. Welcome back to another episode of the From Chaos to Peace podcast, where I talk about how clutter is so much more than you think, and we put a spiritual twist on clearing that clutter to get organized. Thank you so much for allowing me back into your ears. Well, hello, my friend. I'm your host, Conny Graf. Welcome to the podcast, and thank you so much for being here. This episode is kind of part 2 of last week's episode where I talked about how we plan or avoid planning depending on our productivity style. So today I want to talk about how turning a mile-long catch-all to-do list into something that I call a smarter to-do list, and one that actually works for us, for our energy and our elemental type. So you don't necessarily have to have listened to last week's episode 271 already, but maybe you want to check it out after this one. I talked all about why our to-do lists feel overwhelming, the difference between a real to-do list and a monster brain dump list, and how your dominant element, fire, earth, air, or water, might be shaping the way you approach productivity, planning, or, as I said in the title, avoid planning. The thing is, when we know how we naturally operate, we can stop fighting ourselves and start building plans and lists that fit us and our strength, while also taking into consideration our challenges that we have, our weaknesses, so to speak. Although I don't like to call it weaknesses, it's just a challenge that we're having, and when we call it weaknesses, then our brain starts to beat us up, which doesn't really help. So I want to talk about how to take that overloaded, scattered, or vague catch-all list and turn it into something smart, clear, and actually doable for us. And this is not a new idea. Back in December 2018, when I didn't have my podcast yet, so years ago, what is that? 7 years ago, holy moly. 7 years ago, I didn't have my podcast yet. I wrote a blog post about this smarter to-do list, how I call it. Why? Because I too struggle at times to keep my to-do list smart and doable. And then I just work from a catch-all list or from different papers that have to-dos scribbled on them. And it's a little bit everywhere. And I can feel how I sabotage myself. I'm lucky I haven't ever missed anything or forgot any important to-do. But every so often I have to kind of almost do like a reset and start my 3-step process again. And I'm just about now at this point, and I thought I'd take you on this little journey and share with you what I'm doing. So the first step, I call that one collect and dump. And so I take my catch-all list that I kind of have to and make it longer. I add everything and anything that comes to my mind and that isn't on that list yet. I really make sure that I empty my head. My former mentor, Brooke Castillo, she always called that a brain dump. So we just dump everything that we have and that comes to our mind onto paper. You can set an alarm for or a timer for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and just start writing down as much as you want. And I use a digital note for this list, for this brain dump, because I find it easier to deal with it, to organize it later, going through step 2 and 3. But if you can do it or want to do it on paper, you go ahead. My only suggestion would be to actually use a journal or like a book, and a journal instead of loose sheets of paper. So again, I use a digital note, but I really sometimes wish I could use a paper journal. And I have started paper journals before, but I don't seem to be able to keep it consistent in them. I end up scribbling it on a piece of paper instead of the the journal, right? And then also when I want to organize it or when I want to restructure it, it's harder on paper than it is in digital notes. So my brain wants to see some structure, wants to organize it somewhat, and so that's so much easier in a digital note. But again, if you can do it on paper, then you go ahead. My point is that use what works for you. Don't get hung up whether it should be paper or digital. I know there's some people that say, oh, it needs to be digital. Then there's others, they say, oh, no, it needs to be paper. That's much better. I say do what works better for you. Like I said, I use a hybrid version, so I do have some stuff on paper. I will talk about that later. But this brain dump where I collect everything, I definitely do this on a digital note. So, okay, back to the brain dump. So again, you want to get everything out of your head, and then you want to maybe take 5 minutes or so and look around in your office and find all the post-it notes, all the paper snippets, all the maybe even some receipts from a store where you have scribbled something on the back. You want to find that all, everything that floats around, and you want to gather it in this one place. Again, whether you put that on paper or in your digital note, doesn't matter. So now that you have poured everything out of your head and you collected everything, this may look very overwhelming. It is also possibly chaotic. It's a chaotic word salad of tasks, dreams, vague ideas, random reminders. It might be a lot, but don't worry, it gets better quickly. Now at least you have it all in one spot, right? And I quickly want to talk about how each of the 4 elements, fire, earth, air, and water, how we approach it when one of the 4 is our dominant element. So if you're a fire type, for example, you might want to skip this step altogether because you're already halfway doing your first task, right? Like you're the one who jumps in enthusiastically and you don't want to really do all this collecting and planning and categorizing. But I am a fire type, and I can tell you from experience that it's actually well worth it to pause and to sort and to actually really get it all in one place before we enthusiastically jump into the tasks. It helps us to focus, and it also helps us more with follow through, which is one of our challenges, right? So if you're a fire type, you might recognize yourself in this. So let's let's slow down just for a few seconds and do that. On the other hand, if you're an earth type, you probably love this step. You have this catch-all list already, most likely. You're way more organized from the get-go. Your tendency is more to take this way too far. So I want to make sure to tell you to don't spend hours on this. Don't spend hours on organizing the list. I'm reading right now this book, Buy Back Your Time, by, I think it's Dan Martell. And he has such a cool quote in there. He says, 80% done is 100% awesome. And that is really your mantra if you're an earth type, because we can't get to 100%. Like, we don't need to, right? So don't become perfectionistic. Now, the air type, your list, even if you're trying to do the brain dump and even if you're collecting everything, most likely you're still a little bit all over the place and it's incomplete because you really have a hard time to pin all these things down, right? You have such a brilliant mind and you have such a fast thinking mind. It's really hard to keep up and to collect it all. But I encourage you to, just like the fire type, to just try to slow down a bit and actually do this. It will help you so much afterwards. Instead of having just everything floating around in your head and everywhere else. And eventually you do get overwhelmed, as you probably know from experience. So yeah, this step, that brain dump, is actually really important. And if you're a water type, You might find this step way too practical and a bit cold, and you really don't feel like doing this. I want to just give you a gentle reframe that collecting these tasks and everything will help you protect your energy. You're a lot about your energy and how you feel, and this will actually help you big time. So it will help you that you're not feeling so overwhelmed. It will help you with more clarity. If you feel like this is too cold and too practical, then try to make the list pretty, doodle on it, color code it, whatever fits your fancy. Just don't skip this step. Okay, so that was step 1. Now we move on to step 2. So now that we have this huge, big catch-all list, we transform it into a master to-do list. So, and like I said, that is my process. So I need some structure, even though I'm really not an earth type, but I do need some structure. I noticed that for myself. So what I do now, I create from this catch-all list, I create a master to-do list. I call it a master to-do list. And I create 4 columns. You could maybe come up with more or less columns. That's up to you. But what I do is then I have 4 columns, and one is for quick tasks or repeating tasks. One is for if it's a project, like if I've written down something like that is a project that requires multiple steps, I put that in a project column. I have an appointment or event columns, so then I write that in there. And then I have a 4th column that is more like ideas and thoughts and future maybes. And I have always a lot of ideas, and they might be cool, but not for right now because it's not the time, or I don't have the time. So these 4 columns, and then you might want to take a new piece of paper. What I usually do is I just open a new digital note and have these 4 columns, and then I copy everything over from my catch-all list. If you work on paper, you grab another piece of paper, you make these 4 columns or whatever amount of columns makes sense for you, and you by hand transfer them all over from your catch-all list to this master list, right? This step is really, really crucial because I find we all can use some structure. We can all learn from the earth type. The earth type has almost too much structure, but all of us fire, air, and water types, we could use some structure. So let's implement some structure for us and create this master to-do list, how I call it, from your catch-all list. And then notice how it feels once you have all this stuff not in a big jumble on a piece of paper, but now a little bit more structured. So for me, it often feels like I have more clarity and that I have fewer mental tabs open. So I really feel a lightness in my brain. I don't have to remember everything. So now that we have done that, we want to filter a bit. So we have this master to-do list with the 4 columns or however many columns you have, and then we start filtering it. We go again through every single one and we ask us some questions. So is this right now a must do, or is it more like a nice to have one day? Does it make sense to do it right now in the season the season of our life or season of our business that we're in right now? Or is it again more something that we want to do in the future? Is it aligned with my goals and intentions that I have, or is it more like a shiny distractions right now? So when you ask yourself these questions, you go through all these categories on your master to-do list, you ask yourself that, and next to everyone that passes the filter, that it actually is really essential right now to do it, that you really have to do it, that it even has a deadline, you put a star next to it. And so here also, like, depending on what elemental type you are, you might approach this filtering process, or you might rebel against this filtering process. So fire types, for us, everything we're very enthusiastic and we can't wait to start. Everything feels urgent and exciting. And so we want to really, really, again, try to slow down a bit and ask ourselves a big question. Is this excitement? And is it really essential? Or is it we're just excited, but it is not the right time, right? So like, again, it's like with step 1, fire types, we really need to slow ourselves down a bit before we jump in head first, which would be what we would want to do, right? The earth type, what I want to say to you is you probably have this already. You have already your own structure possibly, and you really love structure and doing things right, but your struggle might be with the filtering, especially that you hold on to outdated to-dos or outdated things that you committed weeks ago and that are actually really not essential anymore, or that you realize that they don't fit into your goals. And then it's okay to release these, and if they don't no longer make sense, right? So you want to check in and see, is this really still aligned, or has my goalpost maybe moved a bit? Did I have to tweak something? Does it really make sense? So don't feel bad to let go of outdated to-dos and filter really ruthlessly almost, right? So whatever works for you, just be aware whether you're just hanging on to it or for no reason, or whether it's really still something to do. So now to the air type, I want to say you have, of course, ideas for days, weeks, and months, and everything really sounds like a quick task in your head. So when you're filtering, you want to be mindful of your, I want to call it time-blind optimism, right? Like, I live with somebody like this, tells me what all the things he wants to do today, and I mean, I can hear it already. It doesn't fit in one day. So when you're filtering, I just want you to also slow down maybe for a little bit and really be honest with yourself, and really put the star only on essentials and things that actually fit within your general goals and direction, and not like to everything and think you could do everything. And the water type, since you feel your way through decisions and you also often say yes out of guilt to something that you actually really don't want to do, then you feel obligated, you feel emotional pressure. So when you're filtering your master to-do list, really tune into your body and into your intuition and ask yourself, is this task really mine to do, or am I taking on someone else's stuff again? Did I say yes where I actually shouldn't have said yes, or didn't need to say yes? And then don't put a star next to those things, right? Okay, so after this sorting and filtering, that was the second step, the second layer, to go from a catch-all list to the smarter to-do list, right? And now we can move on to step number 3, creating that smarter to-do list. And we're deciding now what tasks from our master to-do list that do have a star, what tasks we want to move to our to-do list, to our smarter to-do list, and what we're going to work on. And so there's 3 components to this. At first, we need to make sure that whatever we write down onto our smarter to-do list is actually a task and not a project. You might have fallen into this pitfall too before. When you created a to-do list in the past, you created that list and it consisted mostly of projects instead of tasks. So we need to make sure we break things down. So if you pull something from your category of projects, you need to break it down into smaller chunks that then are really tasks before you put them on your smarter to-do list. So for example, if you have on your on your master to-do list, if you have, for example, in the column project, you have new website, you want to make sure that you're not writing new website on your smarter to-do list, right? You have to break this down. You have to figure out what is the first, the second, and the third step maybe that I have to do to create a new website, and then write those onto your smarter to-do list. The second thing we want to make sure is that everything that we put on our smarter to-do list starts with a verb. So it's not like taxes or emails or whatever, that's not tasks, right? A task starts with a verb. So every task you start with a verb. It can be call, mail, plan, schedule, sort, file, shred, record, whatever, right? Like, you know what a verb is. And because this helps really our brain, then it tells our brain exactly what to do when we write it down this way. And then there is no overthinking required. We get less, we're less likely procrastinating because we know exactly what to do and we can just start doing it. And then the third part to this is, and this is often a challenge, especially when we don't know how long things take, is that we shouldn't put too many tasks on this list, right? Like, so about 3 to 5 is ideal. And you can always pull more from your master to-do list if you have really accomplished everything on your daily smarter to-do list already. I think in most cases, it's actually the opposite, that we don't get everything done that we put on our to-do list because we're just more optimistic than we should be. And so a mentor of mine years ago, and actually don't remember who it was who said that we should never plan more than 60% of our time. So if you have planned an 8-hour workday tomorrow, then never plan more than 4.5 or 5 hours out of these 8 hours with tasks, right? Because life happens, business happens, phone calls happens, interruptions happens, things take longer than we think, etc., etc. So only about 60% of any given day or week we should fill with what we want to work on, and leave the rest open. Also for breaks, leave the rest open so we don't have to stress. And I really try to do this, but I have to admit I struggle with that sometimes too. But it's always good to keep in mind. So this gives you your smarter to-do list. So we went from a catch-all list to a master to-do list to a smarter to-do list that you can use for today, right? And all the tasks start with a verb. We have made sure we only plan for about 60% of the time, and we have no projects on there. And anything that doesn't go onto our smarter to-do list just stays on the master to-do list for now. This way we can focus, right? If something pops in our head, we can quickly write it down in the master to-do list in the correct column. That would be the ideal. I admit I don't always do it that way, but like we can be mindful and we can have the intention to do it this way. We keep this master to-do list. We add things there, what we want to do and need to do, and we keep our daily to-do list smart. Yeah. So let's recap real quick before we end. So step 1 was collect and dump. That's where we create this catch-all list, where we collect all the tasks that are floating around and we do a brain dump, right? Step 2 is sort and filter. So we make these categories and then we write all these things into the corresponding category. And then later we filter them with a star to decide which ones is essential that we really want to work on right now, and that are getting pulled over towards the smart to-do list. And then step 3 is we can create that smart to-do list from this master to-do list. So you basically do step 1, from step 1 to step 2, you only do once, right? Afterwards, you can work from your master to-do list, and every day you create your smart to-do list from your master to-do list. 3 to 5 things on your smart to-do list. 3 to 5 things that really matter and that move you forward and move the projects you're working on forward. Actionable tasks that start with a verb so that your brain knows exactly what to do. And above all, you always want to consider what your dominant element is and therefore your innate approach to all of this and what your challenges and tendencies are. So fire types, they really need to break things down into smaller pieces so they can keep momentum and they have quick wins, because otherwise they have even a harder time with follow through. You can use a timer for accountability, because as fire types we kind of like a little bit of competition, so we can do that. Just quick wins, that's an important part. For earth types, I want to tell you to allow yourself some flexibility. You are often too perfectionistic. You focus so much on doing it right or doing it perfect. That doesn't need to be. Remember the 80% done is 100% awesome mantra. And don't make your lists too complicated or too detailed, and don't get stuck in planning. To the air types, I want to say focus on prioritizing and time blocking. Remember, you're over-optimistic and you think you can pack way too much into your day. So my tip for you is actually write your list and then cut the list in half. I dare you. Cut the list in half, and then if you have that half list done and there's still hours in the workday, then you can pull out the rest or the second half of the list. And for water types, I want to say, I know that structures are not your favorite, but this will really help with clarity. It will help that you have less overwhelm. So it's really worth it to go through this process and be compassionate with yourself and build in some check-ins with yourself, build in hot cups of tea, make sure you're proud of yourself for doing things, but allow some structure into your workflow. So, and this is really, like in my eyes, quite a liminal structure that you can probably adopt. Okay, my friend, I don't want to draw this out any more than it is already. Thanks for listening all the way to the end. And I hope you got some value out of it. I hope you recognized yourself in one of the 4 types. If you haven't taken the quiz yet to figure out what your dominant element is, you can do that at connygraf.com/quiz. And you learn whether you're a fire, earth, air, or water type. And so thanks for listening all the way to the end. Have a beautiful week. Talk to you next time. Take good care and be safe.